Before we begin, I got a quick message for you. Number one, if you want the full story, I suggest you go back and listen to the Adonis podcast, episode 36, Officially Unemployed, and you can get the full story. But if not, you don't necessarily need to listen to that episode to understand what's going on here. Number two, in this episode, I'm going to be talking about my most recent work experience, and I'm going to be dropping names and the name of the company, which is not something that I typically do. I believe very strongly in maintaining not only maintaining a strong work ethic, but also keeping my work life separate from my personal life. But in this instance, this company treated me so fucking badly that I'm going to make an exception, and I need to bring attention to this matter and the way they treat people. And I do not suggest that you work for this company ever in a million years. Alright, so let's get started. So I just recently left my job at Whataburger at 815 Lake Bradford Street here in Tallahassee, and here's why. So, towards the end of February, if you've kept up with this podcast, you know that I had to leave my last job. Basically, the FSU community came after me again. This time, they tracked me down to my job, and they brought my podcast to the attention of my job's management and corporate. And it became a concern because they were concerned that my podcast was going to affect their business and that people were not going to shop there. While they were working that out, some of my coworkers, some of who are also in the FSU community, they all teamed up against me and started antagonizing me. One of them popped my tire. Another one went to my manager and falsely accused me of threatening to start shooting people. There's countless examples of this, and it was getting worse and worse by the day. So I saw no other option because I didn't see this stopping or the situation fixing itself anytime soon. So I put in my 2 weeks and I left. 2 days after my unemployment, I walked into the Whataburger by my house and applied for the job. And I got the job almost immediately. And at the time, I was very happy and I was feeling pretty good about myself considering the fact that I had just, quit my job 2 days ago and now I had another one. But I guess, they say the first red flag in a job is if they hire you too quickly. In my instance, I don't think it was that. I think I just made a really good first impression. But I definitely picked up on one red flag during orientation. Miss Gloria, who's one of the main managers at that store, she said to us, here at Whataburger, we're a family. And it is common sense. We all know that the second someone says we're a family at a job, you better know that it is the complete opposite of a family. Regardless, I kept the job. After all, I didn't really have many options. It was either that or be unemployed. So I got trained. I started working there. Things seemed well at first. And then, probably within the past month, things started to get really, really bad. So, starting off strong, a lot of the employees, sure, there's a good handful of people who seem like decent people and they're just there to do their job. But a majority of the employees at the location, they go above and beyond to be rude to you. And when I mean, it's not just oh, you're irritating me and I'm being disturbed and I'm going to be short with you or whatever. No, you'll literally just be standing to the side, minding your own business, have nothing to do with them, and they'll fucking yell at you for no fucking reason. They go literally above and beyond. You know how some people go above and beyond to be nice to others? These people went above and beyond to be rude to others. Not really so much with the customers, but they were definitely rude to each other, and they were rude to other employees and new employees, and they like to boss the new employees around. I kind of just ignored it. In my personal life, I'm someone who's very confrontational with people who try to mistreat me. But in my work life, I understand that, you can't operate that way. Because number one, if you become part of the problem, your employer is gonna look at you. They're not gonna look at you, well, who started this and who deserves what. They're gonna be like, you decided to take matters into your own hands when you should have come to see me. So the best thing to do, this is what I've always practiced in a job, if there was ever someone that was acting out of line, whether it was a coworker or a customer, I just ignore it completely. And if it was that big of a deal that I felt that I needed to say something, I would go and say something to the person in charge and let them handle it. They're trained to handle this kind of thing. They know how to handle this thing in a professional manner. In my personal life, I don't do that shit. In my personal life, I will go off on a motherfucker. But the way I operate in my personal life is very different from the way that I operate in my work life. Two of the managers even, Candace and Carolyn, they started having an issue with me for, it seems to be, no reason. Carolyn started having an issue with me. I don't know why, but I would walk into work and she would start glaring at me. She would start saying nasty things to me. One day she told me to do something. She told me to get some fries from the back of the store. So as I'm walking to the back, I kid you not, as soon as I turned the corner, she said to one of the other managers, there is something mentally wrong with that kid. Like, there's something clearly mentally wrong with him. And I thought about confronting her on the matter because that's extremely unprofessional, especially coming from a manager. But I ultimately decided not to because all she would probably say is that she didn't do it. And, I had no way of proving that she actually did say that. And so it would most likely cause more trouble for me than it would for her because she's a manager. And I could already tell that this was the kind of place where managers are basically immune to any kind of consequences because the managers do basically whatever the fuck they want to. The next day, Caroline was speaking with Candace, and Candace didn't initially seem to have a direct issue with me. She just was blatantly rude to everyone. But as I was walking by them, Candace stopped me and she said, "How's your mental health?" And when she said that, I already knew that her and Caroline had been speaking about me. Because, you put two and two together. Caroline's telling people I have mental health issues. Now she's talking to Candace. Now Candace has issues about my mental health. So I said to Candace, my mental health is fine. Why are you asking? And I kind of said in a stern voice to let her know, I know you guys are talking shit about me. And she said, "Oh, it's just a question." And I said, once again, sternly, I said, "That's a weird question to ask someone." And we all know I'm in the right. Nobody just randomly walks up to someone and asks them questions about their mental health unless they actually believe there is something mentally wrong with you. So I appreciate that. And I kind of let her know that with my tone. And then I just carried on about my day. Now, some of the things that I noticed straight off the bat that were extremely unprofessional is they will berate you in front of customers. In basically every job that I've been in, they literally train you that, if you mess something up, you're, the manager or whoever's in charge are supposed to pull you to the side and be like, "Hey, you messed this up. Don't do that again." They're also supposed to educate you, not necessarily scold you on the matter. This place does not do that. They don't properly train you. They don't fully train you. They leave you to figure out a lot of what you're doing by yourself. And they will scold you and straight up yell at you in front of customers, which I thought was really fucking unprofessional. Now, Miss Gloria is a fake person. She sets herself up to be this Christian lady who goes to church every Sunday, who's also a very hardworking woman, this devoted follower of God. She is not. Because real Christians, real followers of God, do not act in the way that she has acted. She's very hypocritical. She can be very rude at times. She can be very nice at times, but she can also be very rude at times. And so she is one of the people, I don't think I've ever been yelled at by her, but she is one of the people that will berate you in front of customers. She will also go out of her way to make you feel stupid. For example, there was a day where she asked me to make the tea, and I didn't hear her, so I simply asked her, "What did you say?" And she looked at me like I was stupid. And she starts leaning in, looking at me harder, and she says, "Did you really just ask me that question?" And I immediately said, "Yes, I did." And I had countless situations where she did this to me, and I've seen her do this to other people. Other managers within the company have done this to me, and I know exactly what they're doing. They're trying to come off as intimidating. They're purposely trying to intimidate you. And that's why I would immediately say something in response, and I would be like, "Yes, no, I heard you, I didn't hear you," whatever the necessary response was. Because most people in my situation, especially if they're new, they kind of quiet down, they hunch their shoulders, they get very apologetic. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you say, I'm sorry. And I guess these managers, it gives them like a sense of empowerment seeing people act that way like that. Listen, I remain professional at work, but at the same time, I'm not a fucking pushover. So I stood my ground and I said to her, like, "Yes, I did ask that." And I kind of said it in the tone as in a way, like my tone kind of asked in a way like, "Are you stupid? Because you're asking me, did you really just ask me that question? Are you deaf yet?" Like, this is not what I actually said, but this is what I was thinking. I made sure that it kind of came across in my tone. Like, "Are you deaf?" "Yes, that is what I just asked you." "What do you mean is that what I just asked you? You speak English, right?" Like, the question was just downright stupid. Probably one of the most stupid things that I ever saw Gloria do is she got into an argument with another coworker about my age about her name. So we all call her Miss Gloria. Some people call her Miss G. One time I accidentally called her Gloria and she got upset at me for it. And then this one coworker of mine, he kept calling her Gloria on repeat. And I don't know if this was intentional or if he was simply doing this to rage bait her or if it was truly accidental because, you know, it's natural to slip up and call her Gloria instead of Miss Gloria. I think it's natural. She gets upset. And every time that he called her Gloria instead of Miss Gloria, she visibly became more and more agitated until it got to a point where she was almost yelling at him. And she started educating him on how it was disrespectful because she's an older woman and he's younger. She said, "How old are you?" "I'm 22. "Okay, then it's Miss Gloria. I'm older than you. Show some respect." I've never understood that concept. Like, we're not kids, bro. Even as a child, I never understood the concept of, oh, you have to call your older people Mr. and Mrs. First of all, that whole saying respect your elders is bullshit. You don't get respect simply because of your age. That's not how this works. And I've met so many old people who are rude as fuck. Gloria being one of them, actually. But then they expect you to be respectful to them no matter what they do, no matter how they behave, no matter how they treat you, simply because they're old and because respect your elders. And that's bullshit. If you want respect, you have to give respect. It doesn't work. You don't get to treat people however which way you want to, and then expect them to treat you like a king or a queen. That's not how that works. It doesn't matter what your race is, age, gender, ethnicity, doesn't matter. You want respect, you gotta give it. And so Gloria starts educating my coworker about what he's doing is disrespectful because she's an older lady. And she said, you know, if you were older than me, I would call you Mr. I'm not going to say his name for the sake of his own privacy. But you get the point. And I just couldn't think of like how stupid this is. Like, how is it respectful or disrespectful to call you or not to call you Miss or Mrs. or Mr.? So if I say, hey, Miss Gloria, fuck you, does that now make it respectful because I said Miss? If she did something for you and I said, thank you, Gloria, does that make me disrespectful because I didn't say Miss Gloria? That whole concept is stupid. And here's the worst part. She did this, she caused this whole uproar and caused a whole scene in a lobby full of customers. This was in the middle of the lunch rush. We had a line in the drive-thru. We had customers in the store waiting for their orders. I was in the middle of taking orders at the front counter when all of this was going down. And she's throwing a fit because she's offended that somebody didn't call her Miss because he said Gloria instead of Miss Gloria. Well, that is your name, right, Gloria? That is your name, correct? So why are you offended, though? These people like that are the kind of people who are just looking to get offended by something for their own entertainment. And I'm going to tell you right now, if I was a customer, if I was sitting in the lobby and I witnessed that event, or if I was sitting in the drive-thru waiting for my food and wondering why it took so long to get my food out, and I walked in and I saw that argument and I saw the fucking manager throwing an uproar because she's being called Gloria instead of Miss Gloria, bro, I would be the one throwing a fit. I'd probably call corporate on her ass. I'd put in a complaint. I'd ask for a refund. Like, that is just unprofessional behavior. And see, she constantly lectures us on professionalism and being polite and showing respect. But then she doesn't always do it. She does it sometimes, but not always. The way her mentality works is if she's in a good mood, chances are you'll also be in a good mood. Things will run smoothly. But if she's in a bad mood, oh my God, it's absolute hell on earth. And her being a devout Christian, or so she claims, she doesn't like it when people say the Lord's name in vain. Yet she often does. She says things like, oh, Jesus, Jesus. Her catchphrase is, oh, fix it, Jesus. So you criticize others for saying the Lord's name in vain, yet you do exactly that every single day. And there's just so many things that I notice about this woman that are just so hypocritical. And so she wasn't the worst person there. I didn't always have a problem with her. When I did, I just try to stay out of her way. I'm very polite. But I don't have any respect for people who demand respect but then don't show it back, or who only sometimes show it back. And I especially do not have respect for people who are hypocritical. And here's another example of people being rude. Now, I don't remember the name of this, what do you call it? Not like a supervisor, a team lead. Yeah, that's what they call it. One of the team leads, she works a night shift. She's extremely rude. So the way it works when you're at Whataburger, they give you your stations. So if you're supposed to make fries, they give you a fry station. If you're a chef, they put you on the grill. If you're supposed to be taking orders, they put you on front counter. In my instance, they normally had me as front counter / lobby attendant. Sometimes they had me doing other things like fry station or drive-thru, but it was mostly front counter and lobby attendant. So I would come in, and let's just say that they had me on front counter, and I was taking orders, and I didn't have any more orders to take. They would tell me, go clean your lobby, go check the bathrooms, you need to find something to do, you can't just stand there. So I would go out and clean the lobby, and this one particular person, she would get upset, and she would tell me, hey, there's food on the sign that needs to be bagged. Hey, we have fries that need to be dropped. Why is none of this done? Well, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that was in my job description, because I was quite literally trained that all I was supposed to do was maintain the lobby and take orders from customers. But according to this one trainer, no, I'm supposed to maintain the lobby, take orders from customers, bag food, and cook food all at once. I'm pretty sure that's the job of like 3 or 4 people. But she would get upset at me if she saw me out in the lobby. She's like, hey, I need you on front counter. I need you to make fries. What are you doing? You're not supposed to be doing this right now. So I'd go back to the fry station, do whatever needed to be done. Okay, we have no more fries, no food needs to be back, we have no more orders to take, let me go clean the lobby. Then she'd get upset again. You're supposed to be, we have food on the side, why aren't you bagging food? Because I didn't know we had food on the side. Like, aren't we supposed to work together as a team? First of all, in the amount of time that it took you to walk all the way out of the kitchen out here, because mind you, she wasn't doing much herself. She was oftentimes just sitting on her phone, not doing shit. And the amount of time that it took her to walk across the lobby to tell me that there was food that needed to be bagged, she could have 100% bagged it herself. Secondly, there's a much more polite way of doing this. You don't have to be so rude and uppity about it. And why am I not bagging the food? Well, because I just checked a second ago and there was no food that needed to be bagged. You know, I can't get the lobby clean if I'm checking every 2 seconds to make sure there's no food to get bagged. We're supposed to be a team here. If there's food on the side and you need me to bag the food, simply tell me, hey Adonis, there's food on the side. Can you please put that down and come bag the food really quick? You don't have to cause a fucking uproar over it. It's not that big a deal. It's not such a huge deal if the customer has to wait a couple seconds before their food gets bagged and handed out to them. So then it got to the point where it was like, okay, every time I walk away, she gets upset. So I would just stay in my position. So then what would happen is she would walk out and she would see me standing there doing nothing because there's no food on the side, there's no fries that need to be put down, there's no customers in the store. Then she would say, what are you doing? Go clean the lobby. You can't be doing nothing. They're not paying you to do nothing. I'm like, I can't win with these people. No matter what I do, they're always getting upset, and no matter what I do, it's always my fault, never theirs. I can't fucking win with these people. Another example of this is there was a new person that was promoted to management probably within the past couple of weeks. Her name is Lyric. She also had this attitude where she was very uppity, was constantly rushing people, was constantly yelling at people. She would yell at the kitchen staff, hey, where's this order? I need this order now. Where's this order? Where's this order? And the kitchen staff would get frustrated. They're like, yo, it's coming up. Like, it does take time to cook the food, to grill the burgers, to assemble everything. We're not superhuman. We're not the Flash. We're not Sonic. We can't move at superhuman speeds. And perfect example of this, one day we had put down some chicken. And everything has a timer. So we put down the chicken, we set the timer, there's about 7 minutes left on it. She says, yo, I need that chicken. And we said to her, we just put it down. She said, I need it today. The chicken hasn't even been cooking for a minute. Do you want me to take out the chicken and give it to the customer completely raw and uncooked and then get this whole place shut down because of a health hazard? Like, really? Are you fucking kidding me? And you know what's funny? There was a very small handful of people who did care about their associates, who actually went out of their way to make sure that we were good, to make sure that, you know, we all worked together as a team. So there was a day where Lyric was there, and one of the team leads that helped me get employed there, was there. And this guy was very nice. He's very nice. He's very respectful. His motto is you have to put the people first, and that's what makes him such a great team lead, is because he puts people first. Well, Lyric was there, and she was getting mad at me for constantly walking off, and she was getting mad at me for, for not doing fry station or not bagging orders, and I was just in my usual state of frustration, like, okay, I can't seem to win with people. So when the nice team lead, I don't want to say his name on here because I'm not trying to drag any of the good people into this if they don't want to be dragged into this. So I said to him, hey, fry station's done, orders are bagged, should I go and clean the lobby? He said, yes, go ahead. So I go to clean the lobby. Lyric comes out there. What are you doing? There's shit that needs everybody. I go, Lyric, this person literally told me to come and clean the lobby. Don't listen to him. He's mentally ill. He's not right in the head. First of all, he's been at this much longer than you have. Secondly, so one of the few people who's actually okay and is actually a decent human being, unlike you degenerate scums, you want to antagonize him and call him mentally ill? That's a load of bullshit. And so, dude, it got to the point where when I went into work, I quite literally wouldn't listen to anybody. I wouldn't listen to managers, wouldn't listen to team lead. I would literally just do my thing and then clock out and go home. Because no matter what you do, they're never happy with you. No matter what you do, they treat you like a piece of human fucking garbage. No matter what you do, they're never happy. No matter what you do, you're doing the job wrong and you're making them look bad. And it was such an issue, dude. And so it was like, you know what? I've been trained. What I haven't been trained on, I have figured out on my own. I know what I'm doing. I know how to work. I know how to work well. So I just came in. I did my job to the best of my abilities. I clocked out and I went home. Anything they said to me, didn't matter if it was staff, management, team lead, in one ear and out the other. And as a result, when you don't respect your employees, when you don't respect your coworkers, when you treat people like a piece of garbage, that's what happens, is you then get workers who just don't listen to you and do whatever the fuck they want to. Lucky for them, I was actually doing my job and not just like, fucking off on my phone or something. I actually cared about my job still. But that's the result when companies stop giving a shit about their employers or their employees and their customer service towards their employees. That's the result, is you now have a load of employees who simply don't care anymore and do whatever the fuck they want to. I also have a case with Lyric of sexual harassment. So this same day, this was all in one day. Mind you, I worked a 9-hour shift and this is what I had to put up with all in one fucking day. So before we get to the sexual harassment case, I would like to point out that the nice team lead, he noticed that there was some tension between me and Lyric. And he explained to me, he took the time to explain to me, he said, if you're gonna go walk off and clean the lobby, just make sure you let one of us know, because to us, it looks like you're just walking off and not doing your job. And he said, but you're doing good. He said, I understand that, you're not going off to go sit on your phone. You're actually, making sure the lobby's clean, making sure our customers have everything they need. You're doing your job. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're not doing anything wrong. And he said, just make sure you let one of us know before you just walk off so we know where you're at and so we don't think, oh, Adonis just walked off. And see, once again, that's what separates him from everyone else. That's what makes him a good team lead. Because Lyric wasn't doing that. She was just fucking yelling at me the whole shit. And so, this is where the sexual harassment part comes in. She notices that I don't seem happy. She says, why aren't you smiling? And I looked at her with this deadpan expression and I said, what the fuck is there to smile about? And she said, I don't know, be happy you're alive. She's like, why do you look so sad? And she goes, what's wrong, Pookie? What's wrong, Pookie Bear? Talking to me like this baby voice. I'm like, okay, so first of all, you treat me like human garbage all day. And then you wonder why I'm in a bad mood after treating me like human garbage all day. And now you're fucking babying me and fucking flirting with me. Because when you call someone Pookie or Pookie Bear, that's flirting. And I couldn't help, and for the rest of my show, she kept calling me Pookie, Pookie Bear, any variation of the short. And I was just like, this is literally sexual harassment. Because if this was the other way around, if I, as a male, walked in and started calling one of my female coworkers Pookie or Pookie Bear, I would get written up or fired or face some sort of consequences for sexual harassment. That right there, as far as I'm concerned, that is 100% sexual harassment. So now I'm getting frustrated because I'm like, this isn't right. Like, this is fucking sexual harassment. So I go from being yelled at all day to now I'm being fucking sexually harassed. Okay. And see, I'm not the kind of person to go and, make a big deal out of things like this. If someone calls me something that I don't like, I typically just tell them not to call me that, or I ignore it, or I just stop talking to that person altogether. Women, in my experience, women are the ones, they don't do that. And I'm not saying that they don't have a right to do that. If there's someone at your workplace who's speaking to you in a manner that you don't like, or they're calling you things you don't want to be called, you absolutely have the right, regardless of your gender, to go and put in a complaint. But women were the ones who decided that, if someone was calling them a term like bae or pookie or one of those variations and they didn't want to be called that it now classifies as sexual harassment. I don't disagree with that. What I disagree with is that it's only sexual harassment when it's a man saying it to a woman, but it's perfectly fine when it's a woman saying it to a man. That right there is sexism and discrimination. That's not okay. So I was not a fan of that. And then this is the big one, E.J. Riggins. E.J. Riggins is the main manager of the store. And when I first met this guy, everyone had a problem with him and I didn't. He seemed like I study business, I study entrepreneurs, and I also myself am someone with a very blunt and straightforward personality. So I often get this stereotype of being an asshole. And I know people who are managers or businessmen, a lot of times they get that stereotype too. When in reality, they're not necessarily assholes. They just need to get shit done. The job doesn't care about your feelings. I mean, you still need to give a fuck about your employees to a degree. But if there's someone who's just whining about shit that doesn't matter, for example, Gloria whining that someone's not calling her Miss Gloria, the business doesn't care about your fucking feelings. We have food that needs to go out. We have hungry customers. We have a line in the lobby and in the drive-thru. Shut the fuck up. The business doesn't fucking care about your feelings. And so, a lot of people viewed EJ as this asshole in a sense. And I didn't really sense that about him. I just thought that he was just someone who was very straightforward and direct. And I thought that was necessary to keep the business running. Like I said, I literally study business, so I understand that you have to be that way. That being said, there were definitely some times where I thought he was a little excessive. For example, so for those of you who don't work there, there's like this screen that shows all our orders. And when an order goes out, you're supposed to hit this button that bumps it off the screen, basically clears the screen. This was like within my first week of working there. I had no idea what that screen was. No one had shown me how to bump orders off the screen. EJ comes up to me one day, he shows me the screen, he says, "Why is the screen not cleared?" And I kind of just stood there dumbfounded because I didn't even know what he was talking about. And I guess he assumed that he assumed that I knew what he was talking about, but I didn't. And he said, "Let me show you something." He hits the button and he says, "When you see a bunch of orders like this accumulated," he said, "you need to clear that." And he said, "And if I come out here and that screen isn't cleared, we're going to have a problem." And that's when I was like, all right, Jesus, dude, it's not that big of a deal that, the screen isn't clear. We have other people here that can clear the screen as they're passing by. I'm sorry, I'm new. I have no idea what this thing is. You don't need to be so fucking rude and confrontational about it. If I come out here and this is like this, we're gonna have a problem. What the fuck does that even mean? Are you gonna fucking fight me because the screen's not clear? Jesus Christ. Tone it down a bit. Another example, this is a more recent one. So there was a customer that came in, he got his food, and he asked for a side of mayo. Now, the way Whataburger is set up is, so you have your front counter here, and you have your kitchen here, and in between there's a little window where they pass out food. EJ was standing in that window. So I turned around and I said to EJ, "Hey EJ, this customer needs a side of mayo. Can you please pass me a side of mayo?" EJ turns around, looks directly at me, and then goes right back to his conversation. So I'm like, okay, so I was just ignored, blatantly ignored. I have a customer that needs a side of mayo. So I do what any logical person who cares about their job would do, and I walked around to the back of the kitchen to get his mail. As soon as EJ sees me back there, he says to me, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "You're supposed to get front counter. Why aren't you on front counter?" I said, "I'm getting a customer their mail." He said, "Okay, why didn't you ask me to do that? I'm right here." And I said I did, and you ignored me. And he said, "I don't want to hear excuses." And he was like very blunt and rude about it. And he was like, "You're on front counter, stay on front counter. You need to, if that happens again, just tell me and I'll get it." So I just ignored him, handed the customer his mail, got back into position. Later, he pulled me to the side and explained it to me. And he was like, "I'm on your side. I'm not trying to be an asshole or anything." And he said to me, "We need to work together as a team." I was standing right there. You could have just turned around and asked me. He's like, "I know you mean well. I know you were trying to help the customer. But next time that happens, just turn around, just ask me, 'Hey, this customer needs a side of mayo. I can get that for you. You can stay front counter and take care of other customers.'" He would not let me explain to him that I did ask him for that side of mayo, and he looked directly at me and then went right back to his conversation, leaving me no choice but to go back there and get the mayo myself. And it's like, dude, this is your fault, and yet you're blaming me. Ridiculous. And the worst thing he's done. This is the worst thing he's done. Okay, so one day, I was going to work, and on my way to work, I got a flat tire. So I called my job, and I told them, "Hey, I just got a flat tire. I can't make it into work." And immediately the manager was like, "What do you mean you can't make it into work?" And bro, I got so aggravated, because I was like, do you think I intentionally put a nail or something and intentionally gave myself a flat tire and intentionally decided to cost myself money so that I don't have to work today? And I repeated on the phone in a stern voice this time. I said, "I'm on my way to work right now," or at least I was. "I just got a flat tire. I can't come into work today because I now need to take care of this." So the next day, I'm set to go into work. I still have a flat tire. I'm currently getting that fixed. So I don't have transportation to go to work. And it's too far for me to walk. It would be a 3-hour walk in direct sunlight for me to put things into perspective. For me to walk to work, it would have been a 3-hour walk in direct sunlight. And here's the thing, Uber and Lyft, I genuinely don't understand how they are still in business. Uber and Lyft rides now range anywhere between $30 to $50 on average. And that's just to go 5-10 minutes down the street. So I considered all my options. I realized that there was no way I could make it to work. So I called EJ and I explained to him exactly what my situation was down to the last detail. And I told him, I can't make it into work today. And I told him, I'm actively trying to figure this out. And, I can't make it into work. And he said, I'm not trying to be an asshole, but if you can't make it into work, you're not going to be able to work here anymore. Basically, you're going to be fired. And he's like, I'm not trying to be an asshole, but when you submitted an application, you signed a contract. And in that contract, it said that you had reliable transportation to get to work. If you now no longer have reliable transportation to get to work, that's not my problem. He's like, you need to figure it out. You need to be here. If you can't be here, then you're not going to make it. Then you're not going to be able to keep your job here. And I hung up the phone, and now I'm stressed out because on top of worrying about getting my tire fixed, now I also have to worry about whether or not I'm actually... So I was already under the impression that I had just lost my job. Because I have shifts coming up, and I already know that I can't make it. I definitely cannot make it to that shift. So now I'm stressed out about that. I'm already starting to look for a new job because I'm like, well, fuck it. I guess I'm unemployed. And I just thought the whole thing was ridiculous. Every other job that I've worked at in my entire life, and I've been working for quite a while, if something happened and I reasonably could not make it to work, whether it was a personal emergency, medical emergency, something like getting a flat tire, they understood. They would say, hey, we get it, life happens, come back to work when you can. And so I thought that was extremely unreasonable what he did. I'm like, dude, This is something that was out of my control. I can't control when I get a flat tire. It's something that just happens. So I called back. I was going to try to work out a deal with EJ. And he wouldn't talk to me directly. He had another manager talk to me. And mind you, when I first spoke to him, this was about 2 hours before my shift even started. So they had plenty of time. It's not like I called when my shift started. Or half an hour before my shift started and told them, hey, I can't make it in. I gave them plenty of fucking time. But I called back to work out a deal, and I was like, hey, can you let me off this time? And then the next time this happens, then you let me go. Because, this isn't like I'm calling out of work to go to a football game or go hang out with my friends. This is genuinely something that's out of my control. I'm down on my luck right now. I'm not going to spend $50 on an Uber ride to go 10 minutes down the road, especially after they treated me like that. Because think about it, if it's $50 one way and another $50 to go back home, that's $100 out of my pocket in one day. This job only pays $14 an hour. It's not worth it. I'm not doing that. So basically he said that they were going to let me off the hook this time. They were going to write me up and document it. And then if this happened again, I would get fired. So if something were to happen tomorrow, if a family member died, if I broke my leg and ended up in the hospital, whatever the reason is, I can't make it into work, you're fired. Just like that. Absolutely ridiculous and completely unreasonable. And they never actually wrote me up. I don't know if he changed his mind or if he forgot. I don't know what that situation was, but they never wrote me up. Weird, but whatever. Ever since that day, I started looking for a new job because that's absolutely ridiculous that they are trying to punish me when I was on my way to work for you guys. I'm helping you out because the agreement is I come into work, I help you in your business, and you pay me for my time and for my help. So this is a two-way street. You're helping me by paying me. I'm helping you by showing up to work. And I'm like, dude, I'm not some lazy employee that sits on his phone his entire shift. I don't show up to work late. I've come in on my days off when y'all needed me to. I've shown up to work early and clocked in early when you needed me to. I show up to my work on time. I do my job every day to the best of my abilities. Why am I being treated this way? I don't deserve this. This is ridiculous. So this was the final straw. One day, I'm at work, and it was a slow morning for whatever reason. When I say slow, we had maybe 2 or 3 customers an hour. It was a very, very slow day. The cook in the back, her name was Charisse. She was very rude to everybody all the fucking time. It's her core personality trait. She just exists to be rude to people and to yell at people all day for no reason. I'm on front counter in lobby, and we have one guy who's bagging up the orders, and we have one guy who's on the fry station. Because we had very little customers that day, I was able to get everything done. The lobby had been wiped down, bathrooms got cleaned, glasses, the front doors got cleaned, ice buckets refilled, everything restocked. I was able to do everything I needed to do and more. And I double-checked my work, triple-checked my work. Everything's done. I don't need to worry about fry station or bagging because we got 2 other employees on that. So I sat in front of my register waiting for the next customer, and I pull out my phone. And Charisse is watching me through the kitchen window, and she says, "Get off your phone, you're not supposed to be on your phone." I ignore her. And then she says to me, "Oh, okay, since you want to be on your phone, then go to break." And I said to her, "Excuse me, you're not my manager." She says, "I am the team lead. I am absolutely in charge." And I looked at the 2 new guys and I said, "Is she the team lead?" Because here's the thing. Everyone has their own designated uniform. based on their role. And Charisse had the exact uniform on that I did. So as far as I'm concerned, she's not the teammate, she's the cook, meaning she's my equal when in terms of employment. She has no authority over me whatsoever. The manager on duty was Candace, and Candace was sitting on the back. She was sitting on the soda boxes and doom scrolling on her phone for hours, which is something that she typically does on her shift. And she doesn't actually do her job, but rather she just sits on her fat ass on the soda boxes and doom scrolls on her phone. And I think it is so ironic that I get in trouble for pulling up my phone for less than 2 minutes, and I get yelled at for it. But Candace, who is a manager, mind you, sits on her phone for hours, and no one bats an eye. She doesn't get in trouble, doesn't face any consequences, nothing. So with no other option, I go to break, I sit down for a minute, and I'm just, at this point, everything's really gotten to me. Because every single day, I'm coming into work and I'm dealing with this bullshit. And it seems to be getting worse by the day. Every day there's something new. Every day it's getting worse. So I grabbed my stuff and I walked out. I got home. I called corporate. I told them what happened that day. I told them what's happened in previous shifts. And Whataburger's policy is that if you walk out of your shift for whatever reason, they basically assume that you've quit and your employment is terminated. So now I'm thinking, well, shit, I guess I don't have a job. This is how ass this place is it will literally have you thinking that you don't have a job when you in fact still do. So I'm thinking, I guess I don't have a job anymore. About 6 o'clock in the afternoon, I get a call from one of the good managers. And he said, they had told me that you had called out. And he said, or not called out, they told me that you had walked out. And he said, and I know that's not you. So I'd like to know what happened. So I told him my side of the story. And he said to me, I can attest to that because I can confirm that a lot of the people here absolutely are rude as hell. And he told me that, I was a good worker, that I'm reliable. And he said to me, so the problem is that it's not that we can't find good people, is that we're getting good people, but people like Charisse are scaring them off. And I said to him, that's exactly correct. Because, EJ and other people, they're constantly complaining that they can't find good people or they can't keep good people. But then they treat us like literal human garbage. And I told him that, not EJ, but the manager who called me. I told him, I feel like I'm being treated like a piece of fucking garbage. And I told him, we all have our breaking point. I reached my breaking point today. And that's why I walked out. And he told me that Gloria had told him, so let me back up. The policy is not that you walk out and you automatically lose your job. The policy, he explained it to me, the policy is that if you walk out, they're supposed to make contact with you and see why. See why you walked out. Because you could have walked out because you genuinely got an emergency. You could have just gotten a text that somebody close to you had died. Or you had a medical emergency. You needed to rush to the hospital. Whatever the reason is, you might not have had time to let someone know, like, hey, I need to leave right now. So they're supposed to make an effort to contact you. If they can't make contact with you and they don't hear back from you and you just show up expecting to be employed after you just walked out because you simply felt like it, then yeah, you lose your job. But it's not that you just walk out and, oh, okay, you don't have a job here anymore. So Miss Gloria had told this particular manager that she had reached out to me and that she couldn't get in contact with me. And I guess something instinctively told him that that wasn't true because he reached out to me anyway. And I told him, dude, you are the first person that I've heard from all day. Mind you, I got home in the morning time. Like, I got home about 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. And this guy had called me about 6 o'clock in the evening. And I told him, like, you are the first person. Like, he asked me, has anyone else reached out to you? And I said, no, you are the first person that has reached out to him. And I told him, too, that, like, I appreciate you reaching out to me. Like, it means a lot that you actually gave a fuck to reach out to me and get my side of the story. And it also shows that I definitely have a strong character that speaks for itself. Because for everyone to basically lie to him and tell him that, oh, yeah, he just up and quit for no reason and just walked out of here for no reason, he said, no, that's not like Adonis. I need to call him and see what actually happened. So I told him, like, I appreciate that. And I told him, like, there's a handful of people that I do like, and you're one of them. And I named the others that I like. But I told him, like, a majority of the people that work here, I can't fucking stand them. They just go out of their way to be rude. And they have no reason to be rude. Like, we're all adults. We're all grown adults. There's no reason to be acting this way. And you know, the whole thing with Charisse, here's the thing. She's in the kitchen cooking food. She has a guy bagging food. She has a guy making the sides, like, the chicken nuggets and the fries and the apple pies. We have no customers in the store. How the fuck does it affect her whether or not I'm on my phone? Or if I'm doing something I'm not supposed to be doing, no matter what the fuck I'm doing, how the fuck does that affect her? Why does she need to go out of her way to fucking yell at me for it? And apparently EJ this is not from him, this is from a coworker of mine. Apparently EJ had made her the team lead, but he never gave her the proper uniform. And I said, well, that's not my fault. They didn't give her a uniform to let us know that she's now in charge, and they didn't tell us she's in charge. How the fuck am I going to know? You know, she comes at me screaming and such. How am I supposed to know that she's in charge? From my perspective, it looks like she's just being a bossy employee. And regardless of her position, even if she's a fucking manager, that's not how you fucking treat people. So I asked my manager, I said, so does this mean I'm fired? He said, no, you're not fired. Come back to work tomorrow. I come back to work tomorrow. EJ shows up. At the end of my shift, he pulls me into his office with Candace as a witness. And he's purposely controlling the narrative of the conversation. So that it basically makes me look like a bad guy. So he was like, so let me ask you something. He's like, if I decided to just walk out of here one day just because I felt like it, just because I was 10 or whatever, if I just decided to walk out of here, what do you think would happen? And I said, you would get fired. And he said, exactly. So he said, so what makes you think that it's okay for you to do that? And I'm like, it's not. He's like, okay, then so why'd you do it? And I was like, that wasn't the full story. And he was like, nope, I already looked at everything. I got my report. Wouldn't even hear my side of the story. He's already making his analysis. He's like, I already got my report. I already know what happened. I already spoke to people. I know what you did. You just decided to walk up out here because you felt like it. That's not okay. And he's like, so I'm going to tell you right now. He's like, I'm going to tell you right now, you decide to just walk up out here because you feel like it. You don't get to keep your job here. You're going to get fired. He's like, so run me through really quick what happened. And I told him basically what I told corporate and what I told the previous manager. You know, we had no customers. I triple check my work. I get on my phone and Charisse yells at me. He says, okay, I already checked the cameras and you were on your phone 3 separate times. And we're not supposed to have our phones out on the floor because it's a health hazard. If the health inspector walks in and sees you on their phone, they're going to shut this whole place down and we're going to be out of a job and it's all going to be your fault. And he says to me, I've got 6 kids. I've got mouths to feed. Are you going to let us move in with you? Am I going to come sleep on your couch? Because if I'm out of a job, it's going to be your fault. How does that make you feel? First of all, I think he's lying. Because I have worked in fast food before, and I've had health inspectors walk in, and they've never said anything at all about phones. I've never seen that I've read that, the health manual. I've never seen anything about phones. I have been informed that, if you are going to touch your phone to wash your hands or change your gloves, I've never been specifically told that it's a health hazard. Additionally, this is the most ironic thing, is everyone's on their phone. That day, Candace was on her phone for hours. The people who yell at me to get out of the lobby and get back on the fire station, this is the thing. For example, that one lady, in the example that I used earlier, in the time that it took her to walk across the lobby and tell me to bag the food, she could have bagged it herself. She's on the phone her entire shift. They're on their phones in front of customers. They're on their phones when there's food that needs to be bagged, when there's food that needs to be cooked, when there's orders that need to be taken. In every job that I've ever worked, there's always been people that are on their phones. And in every job that I've ever worked, the employers don't really care as long as you're getting your shit done and as long as you're not using your phone in front of customers. Because if you're using your phone in front of customers, then customers can go put in a corporate complaint that like, oh, he's on his phone, he's not paying attention to me. But if you put your phone down as soon as the customer walks by, they don't care. If you've gotten everything done and there's nothing left to do and you get on your phone, they don't care. They understand because in my situation, it was literally either get on my phone or stare into blank space for the next 20 minutes. Mostly every place that I've worked at, if you're on your phone in front of customers, that's an issue. If you're on your phone and there's actually shit that needs to be done, that's an issue. But if you do good work and everything's done, and you've made sure that everything's done, and there's nothing left for you to do, and you decide to pull out your phone, they don't mind. So we've got people at this Whataburger who are on their phone in front of customers and on their phone their entire shift and on their phone when they should be working. I actually got my work done and pulled out my phone because I was bored because there was nothing else for me to do. And now you're telling me that the whole store's going to be shut down and it's going to be my fault that the store's being shut down and all this shit. And he said to me, why don't you listen to Charisse when she told you to put the phone away? And I said, well, because she has no authority over me. He said, yes, she does. She's a team lead. I gave her that authority. I made her the team lead. I gave her that authority. He never actually gave me a chance to explain this, but in my head, I was thinking, like, she doesn't have the proper uniform, the team lead uniform that lets us know that she's the team lead and she's in charge. And I don't know if EJ has informed other people, but nobody ever informed me that she was in charge of anything. So as far as I'm concerned, that's EJ's fault. That's not on me. And then he goes on to say, even if she's not team lead, if she's telling you you're not supposed to be doing something and you know you're not supposed to be doing something, why won't you listen to her? He's like, just for example, if I'm out there without a beard guard and you tell me, hey, EJ, go put on a beard guard, I'm supposed to go put on a beard guard, right? It's probably the most ironic thing about the whole conversation. EJ regularly goes out there. Mind you, EJ has a full beard, like from his ears all the way down. I only have a good goatee. EJ has a very thick beard. And he never wears a beard guard. He's out in the lobby. He's working fry station. He's serving food all without a beard guard on. In the past 2 months that I've worked at this location, I have never seen this guy with a beard guard on. Ever. But he decides to use that example. And I'm like, so wait a minute. You take something that you're not supposed to be doing, yet you're doing it anyway. And you know you're not supposed to be doing that. And that's the example that you use. And so, dude, this guy just keeps talking at me and fucking controlling the narrative. And basically, if this was a boxing match, he would have me in the corner and beating me without me having any chance of escape or any way for me to defend myself. That's how this conversation went. And he kept telling me that he was going to fire me. And then towards the end of the conversation, he said, so I'm documenting this, and I'm going to let you know right now, I'm documenting this. You're going to get written up. If this happens again, you're going to get fired. And I'm like, okay, well, now I'm confused. Because you've been saying numerous times that you were going to fire me throughout this conversation, but now you're saying that if this happens again, then I'll get fired. And I think he did this intentionally to manipulate me. Because this is something that manipulators do. Because it's very obvious from the conversation he was trying to manipulate me and control the narrative of a conversation for his own benefit. And something that manipulators often do is they will purposely confuse you so that it basically short-circuits your brain and you'll basically agree with whatever they're saying. Most people in my position, their brain would have short-circuited and they would have just told him whatever he needs to hear, and they would have accepted the write-up if that was actually his intention, because now I don't know what his intention actually was. And they would have just been relieved that they're able to keep their job. And I'm like, okay, so you're doing nothing about the fact that Charisse yelled at me. Oh, that's another thing too. When he mentioned that Charisse yelled at me, he said, well, did she yell at you or did she just speak to you in a stern manner? Because there's a difference. No, she fucking yelled at me. I know what the difference. Like, I'm not a baby. I know the difference between speaking to someone in a stern tone and full on yelling at them. She was yelling at me. But he didn't acknowledge the fact that she was yelling at me. He didn't acknowledge the fact that Candace was back here on the phone and not doing her job, because he also asked her, well, why don't you speak to Candace? Why don't you speak to me? You weren't even here. That's why I walked out. Because I'm like, okay, so I have a problem. Typically what I would do is I would take this problem to management and let management handle it. The manager doesn't handle shit. Candace is the kind of person where if you went to her with this problem, she would get upset at you and not fix the problem. She would go back to doom scrolling on her phone. That's why I walked out, because I saw no other fucking option other than to walk out. And let me just point out how crazy these managers are, bro. That Carolyn, she says I'm mental. I think she's the one who's actually mental, because she gets mad at me for no reason. Here's a perfect example. One day, I was sitting in the lobby waiting for my food, or standing in the lobby waiting for my food, and Carolyn came out there with the mop, and she's like, you're getting grease all over my floor. I just mopped and you're getting grease all over my floor. And at first I thought she was joking. You know, she was dead ass serious. And I'm like, what do you want me to do? Hover over the ground? Like, the whole floor has been mopped. There's nowhere for me to go. I need to walk across the floor. It's not like I was even walking across the floor. I was literally standing in one spot waiting for my food. Here's another example. One day I walked in and I had ordered food before my shift started. And Gloria got upset at me because apparently she was in the middle of something and she had to stop to take my order. And she said, you should have come in earlier. You know I'm busy at this time. And she goes, you know better. You work here. And also there were several times too where I would walk in to order food and they would literally ignore me. I would be standing at the register for like 10 minutes and they would fucking ignore me. And I'm like, dude, you wouldn't treat me this way if I was a regular customer. Why am I being treated any differently? Simply because I work here. So because I work here, it's okay to treat me like shit. But with customers, you treat them with the most utmost respect. As far as I'm concerned, if I'm not on the clock and I'm ordering food and I'm paying food, I'm a paying customer. So I should be treated with the same level of respect as a paying customer. But they don't do that. They treat you like shit on and off the clock. It's fucking ridiculous. So, per my last conversation with EJ, it got to the point where, you know, this guy's just berating me and he's making everything my fault and nobody else's. No one else is at fault. It's all me. It's all my fault. And so I just said to him, you are not hearing my side of the story. This conversation is very one-sided. You're not hearing me out. You're controlling the narrative. You're not letting me speak. So this is my final day of employment here. I quit. And I walked out of there. I grabbed my shit and I walked out. 30 minutes after I walk out, this nigger calls me on my phone. And I declined the call. And he leaves me a voicemail. He says, hey, Adonis, it's EJ. Give me a call back when you can. Okay. I don't know what he wanted. And I'll never find out. You want to know why? Because I blocked his fucking number. I don't know what he wanted. I can't even imagine what he wanted from me. I blocked him. I called corporate. I put in a second report about what's going on. So I don't know what's going to happen on their end. They're going to do a whole investigation and they said they're going to contact me when it's done. Honestly, I don't care because in my experience, HR and corporate, they never do shit. Because here's the thing, corporate and HR, they're not actually there to serve you. They pretend to be, but they're not there to protect you. They're there to protect the company. They don't give a shit about you. And so 99.9% of the time, they're going to sign with the managers, even if the manager is 100% in the wrong. So, I don't know what's going to happen with HR. I honestly don't even care. That's why I'm making this podcast, to bring attention to this matter. Because here's the thing. If HR and corporate actually did what they were supposed to be doing and they actually gave a shit, this whole situation never would have happened in the first place. I've heard gossip from my coworkers that this is not the first time that EJ has been reported to corporate before or to HR. So the fact that he is still employed there is a detriment to how much Whataburger actually gives a fuck. And the reality is, they don't give a fuck. Because if they actually gave a fuck, it never would have gone this bad. Because I was just thinking about it, after I made this report, I was thinking about everything, and I was like, this is actually really bad. Because everything that I've been through falls under the categories of workplace bullying and harassment, workplace bullying, sexual harassment, unfair treatment. There's so many categories. And, this isn't something basic like, oh, yeah, my manager yells at me. These are some really, really serious categories that could possibly endanger the business. It's really fucking bad. If corporate actually cared, it wouldn't have never gotten so bad and so uncontrollable. On a final note, I will bring this up because chances are the police are not actually going to do anything because the cops actually don't give a shit. Lando DM'd me on Instagram basically that he doesn't like me or my podcast, he doesn't agree with what I'm saying, and he's like, I know where you live, I know where your friends are, I know what your beliefs are, I know where you work at. He's like, you need to quit the shit or else I'm going to go down to Whataburger and I'm going to handle this shit for you. I ignored it because, because of the business that I'm in, I get online threats all the time. People talk shit all the time. Most people don't really mean it. Matter of fact, when people threaten you, this is why I don't take threats seriously. Because if people actually wanted to hurt you, most people are not going to let you know in advance that, hey, I'm going to hurt you. They're just going to do it without warning. That's why I don't take threats seriously. Because if you actually wanted to hurt me, you wouldn't take the time to threaten me, you just do it. But then, one day I came into work, and one of the managers, this is one of the good managers, who actually cares about her people, she told me that, some guy had walked in looking for me, and he was kind of, aggressive. And she told me that basically this guy walked in, he's like, yo, is Adonis here? And she said, nah, he's not here. And he's like, okay, well then I guess he ain't shit. Or something to that effect. And I instantly knew that it was someone from the FSU community, because FSU gives me shit all the fucking time. FSU regularly goes out of their way to stalk me, to track me down, to come and mess with my job, my home, whatever it is. So I instantly knew it was FSU after me again. And she was like, yeah, he looks like he came from FSU. He looks like he goes to FSU. And I'm trying to think, who is this? And then I remembered that DM. So I pulled up Lando's Instagram and I showed her a picture and I said, is this him? And she said, yes, that's the guy. And I said, okay, next time that guy comes in, call the police. And I showed her the message he sent me. And I asked her, do you think I need to put in a police report? And she said, yeah, I would. She's like, you need to put in a report right away, because if you're saying this guy has no good intentions, mind you, I don't even know who this guy is. I've never met Lando before. I've never seen him before in my life. I have no idea who he is. And he's going out of his way to track me down to my job. That's how I know that the threat isn't simply a threat. He actually intends to hurt me. So chances are the cops won't do anything, because the cops never do anything in this city. But yeah, that whole thing happened too. And luckily one of the good managers was working that day, because if it was one of the regular managers, I probably wouldn't even know. He would have probably just come back one day and fucking attacked me, and I would have had no idea what was going on. But she said that he's going to get trespassed from that Whataburger, and yeah, I put in a police report for legal purposes only at this point, because I put in that report almost a week ago, and I haven't heard from the cops. Like, that's how much the cops gave a shit, is I haven't even gotten so much as a phone call from the cops. So to end this off, I gave Whataburger a 1-star review, and in that review, I told the audience I was an employee here, and I had to quit because of the way they treated us. Managers and staff combined go above and beyond to be rude and treated me like a piece of human garbage. Behavior includes yelling, berating in front of customers, blaming you for their mistakes, sexual harassment, workplace bullying and harassment. The list is endless. E.J. Riggins, who is the primary manager, is extremely unreasonable and the exact opposite of what a good manager should be. He tried to fire me once because I got a flat tire on the way to work, and I called 2 hours in advance to let them know I couldn't make it in. Per our last conversation, EJ purposely controlled the narrative to put the blame 100% on me, and he fails to take any accountability for anything at any time. He fires and mistreats good people like myself, but does nothing about those actually misbehaving and causing problems. Managers Candace and Caroline seem to hate me for some reason, as they always start problems with me, and both have strongly implied that I have mental health problems. Caroline telling people there was something mentally wrong with me, and Candace asking me about my mental health for no reason. And my final note, Miss Gloria is not who she pretends to be. She lies and she presents herself as a devoted woman of God who gives respect but also expects it. Well, Miss Gloria only shows respect sometimes. If she's in a good mood, things run fine, but if she's in a bad mood, she's a bitch to everybody. Some of her inappropriate behavior includes berating in front of customers, making you feel stupid, and not keeping promises. She demands more respect than she gives. So that's my review of Whataburger. Guys, do not fucking work for Whataburger. I don't usually do this, even when I quit a company, if I don't end on good terms with them. I believe in remaining professional and not, slandering them like I'm doing right now. But this was so bad, I'm going to slander them. I'm going to call attention to this matter. I'm going to publicly talk about it. Because this was just absolutely and utterly ridiculous. I'm actually now starting to miss my old job, believe it or not. It's unfortunate. I worked there for 3 years, and then the FSU community came in and ruined that too. And I'm the bad guy, according to them, and they're allowed to ruin shit for me because I'm the bad guy. But basically, I covered this in the beginning of the episode. I got along with most of the people that work there. I worked there for 3 years, so you gotta be happy with a place if you're there for that long. But they pulled me into the office one day because the podcast had concerns, and they weren't rude about it. They were very polite. But it was basically a concern, and corporate was now involved, and they were doing an investigation. I'm not trying to stop podcasting. I'm not going to tune down my podcast or my language for anybody. So, the way I see it, we were never going to see eye to eye on that. Because they're concerned that my podcast is an issue because it might affect their business. Well, I'm not going to stop, sorry. I'm entitled to say what I want to say because we have free speech, and I'm entitled to talk about what I want to talk about because I have a right to my own life when I'm not on the clock. While this investigation was going on, a bunch of my coworkers teamed up against me. Like I said, one of them popped my tires. Another one of them told my manager that I was going to shoot people. And that's just 2 examples. I have many examples. But one coworker accused me of rape. Another coworker, they started making fun of me, saying that I had mental health problems. It got bad. I quit because I saw no other way out of it. Things were getting worse and worse by the day. And I didn't know what else to do. Now notice I still haven't named the place that I used to work for because they still have a sense of respect for them, it wouldn't be fair for me to slander them too, because the situation is not really their fault. My issue was not with the managers. My issue was with some of the employees. And while I don't always see eye to eye with your policies, I do understand why they have them in place. Because, for example, I would say, and I would think most people would say, in my situation, those people that were coming after me, they should have been fired immediately. But here's the thing. There were way more of them than there were of me. If they went ahead and got rid of the people who were mistreating me, it would put them in a very bad position because they need people to work there. They need people to, well, I'm not going to describe the roles because I don't want to give away the location of where I was working. But any business needs people. You can't just fire a large portion of people because then you won't have people to run your business. And so I understand why. I don't think it's necessarily, number one, they needed to do a thorough investigation because for all they know, I could be lying. So they need to do a thorough investigation into the matter and see who's actually in the wrong. I believe that it is within their right to investigate everybody, including myself and including my coworkers that I'm accusing right now of doing these things. That's step number one. Number two, even if they found these people guilty, it was enough people that if they let these people go, it would put their business in jeopardy because they would have a very large shortage of people that now no longer work for them. So at the end of the day, it's, do you get rid of me, who I really haven't caused any problems, other than the fact that people managed to track me down and bring trouble to my job? But that's something that's out of my control. As far as me actually causing problems by me being a lazy worker or me being rude or things of that matter, I'm not like that. So is it easier for them to get rid of me and I can just take my podcast and go somewhere else and they don't have to worry about coworkers teaming up against me? They don't have to worry about people showing up. They don't have to worry about losing customers because I work there? Or is it easier to try and figure out who's actually the bad guy and fire a large portion of people, and now you don't have people working for you, and now your business is in jeopardy because you have people working for you? That's why I took the liberty of just quitting. And I still put in my 2 weeks. I didn't quit on the spot. I still put in my 2 weeks, and I worked those shifts in those 2 weeks. Because I still have some respect for them. I don't have a respect for the people who caused all this to happen, obviously. But as far as management themselves and the company themselves, I don't have an issue with them at all. So I did what was not only best for me, but also best for them. That's why I had to go. And Whataburger seemed to be an okay alternative for the meantime. And fuck, I was wrong. Fuck, I miss my old job. Anyway, that's the end of this podcast. Thanks for listening. This is the Adonis Podcast.